Hello, friends, and welcome to a special Sunday night edition of, let's call this what? Conscious with the Crowders, Conscious Observers, Conscious Crowder Observers. Anyways, I'm Jordan with my lovely co-host,
Sarah.
Sarah, and our honorary co-host. Let's introduce Soul to the crowd.
Say hi, Soul.
This is Soul. Yeah, he decided to jump in at the last minute there. You never know what's going to happen, guys. You never know. So, anyways, hope everyone's doing amazing today. We had to make this a Sunday night broadcast because last night we had our first sound bath in the new space. If you don't know, the space is our physical location that we have been working on with our close friends, and it's finally operational. It's up and running. We had our first event last night. We did our silent sound experience, which is kind of like a sound bath, but using kind of Monroe Institute inspired binaural beats and stuff. Super fun guided meditation. So anyways, that went down last night. So we're here with you guys tonight. So we have a lot to talk about.
Yes, we do. Exciting week of episodes, huh, everybody?
Yeah. So a lot of people were surprised by this week's episodes because I don't really do a lot of interviews. And we did a pretty cool one. I mean, I did one in the past with the Plasma Girl, and she's awesome. So Yep, Dana Kipple, and a lot of people really like that one. And I reached out to one of my favorite people, Jason Jorjani, and we were just talking on X. We're friends or whatever you call it on X, and I knew that he had seen my stuff because I made a comment and he said that he watched my video. So I was like, okay, cool, he's seen my stuff. So this isn't like, I don't do like cold outreach or anything like that, but anyways, we just had like a little conversation, and I was like, hey man, I was like, I'd love to talk to you. And I don't really call it like an interview because interviews kind of have a style and a feel, like an interview's an interview, and I just wanted to have a conversation with the man, because I like him. He's cool. He's definitely an outside of the box thinker. He's a bit extreme, a bit dark, but incredibly smart and just a wealth of knowledge. And I love his take on everything. So I was like, hey, why don't you come on the show? And he had just got done doing Jesse Michaels, and he was like, I don't really do interviews. He said he had, I forget how many dozens of people that he had basically put off, and, that had reached out to him for an interview. And he's like, he's busy. I mean, he's writing. He's a prolific writer. So anyways, I caught him at the right time, and he was like, I just wrapped up this interview. He was doing a back-to-back, had to go to Austin twice to do Jesse Michaels. He was doing another one with Danny Jones, and he was like, yeah, so let me come on yours. I was like, heck yeah. So I'm sliding right in between Jesse Michaels and Danny Jones. And so it just worked out perfect. And anyways, we had a great conversation, and split it up into 2 episodes because my crowd, from what I hear from people, they like my stuff to be a little, some of these podcasts are crazy long, like sometimes they're like 4 hours long. And I'm like, dude, I want to watch it, but I don't have 4 hours to spend.
Yeah.
So a lot of my people say that they watch my stuff when they're like on lunch break or at the gym or on the way to work or from work and that kind of stuff. And it fits perfect, that 45 minutes, hour or so. But like me and Jason's thing was almost 3 hours. So I was like, okay, I'm going to split this in 2, because what I didn't want to happen, I wasn't trying to be dramatic and like draw it out, because I had some people that were like, I hate it when podcasters make episodes into 2 episodes, for like clicks or whatever. It's like, no, this was literally, all my episodes are like 45 minutes long. I didn't want to all of a sudden go to 3 hours, and what I didn't want to happen is someone like, I didn't want people to watch only part of it and then not finish it. So I was like, okay, I think we'll have a better chance of people finishing it if I make it 2 parts.
Absolutely.
Then they can watch the whole part 1 and the whole part 2. But if it was 3 hours long, a lot of people probably wouldn't have finished it. So that's why. Y'all didn't ask, but that's why. That's why it was a 2-parter. I don't normally do that, and I probably won't again, but I thought this time I would. And people seem to like it. So let me know in the comments if you guys liked it, and if you want me to do more of these. I had a bunch of suggestions from people about who else I can have on. And, I'm a little picky about who I have on just because I don't know, like I don't interview a lot of people. So I want it to be somebody I really resonate with. So I have a few people in mind for my next one, but I'm always up to suggestions because there's a lot of cool people out there that I don't know about. So please, send them my way if you know of anybody. But so anyways, here in a minute, we'll get into kind of do like a quick recap of Tom Campbell. Yep, he's definitely on my short list. Yep. Tom Campbell, Jason Brashears. I had a lot of people that were like, have you ever heard of Jason Brashears? And I was actually on his show last year, funny enough. And he doesn't do a lot of interviews either. Yeah, my microphone just broke. So how'd that even happen? Anyways,
No worries.
if y'all are regulars to the show, you know we do not make it through a show without
Some
something
sort of
breaking.
technical difficulty.
I was just thinking how smooth this one was going, and then literally part of the microphone just breaks off. Anywho, we're back.
Yes, Tom Campbell is on the short list. Actually, the same day as you interviewed Jorjani, Jordan did a presentation for the Consciousness
Oh, yeah.
Hub. That is Tom Campbell's online community. So it was a big day.
It's a big
Suzanne
day.
Geisman, yes, that is the one that is on my short list.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Right before I did the Jorjani interview, I was interviewed by
Yeah.
Bobby the Good with Tom Campbell's, or actually Donna and Bobby.
Yeah.
Donna mainly interviewed me, and it was a great interview and a great talk. So they're going to release that pretty soon. I think I know it was like live for everybody that's a part of the Consciousness Hub. I think it's being released for the public to watch too. So yeah, I did that, and then I went right into the marathon with Jason. So yeah, that was a long day. Suzanne Geisman, I don't know her.
Yeah, she's the psychic that your friend Jim was telling us about. I literally was talking to you about her yesterday.
Yeah. Okay.
On the very short.
I knew. I mean, I know the name. I couldn't put a face to it. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Suzanne Geisman, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Julia Cannon, yeah, she's great. We've met her a couple times.
Mhm.
Yep. Anybody in the Cannon family? Yeah. So so many people out there, and so Brashears, Jason Brashears, I was on his show last year. He interviewed me, and it was really good. And it's funny because, like, if y'all know him, if you know Archaics, he similar kind of style to Jorjani in the sense that, like, kind of skews a little darker, a little more on the whole, like, cataclysms coming, what are we going to do to survive, kind of focus on that, which I like. I've learned a lot from him. But it's funny because when I went on a show, like, I don't know, I kind of skew a little more towards the, like, woo, like a little more love and light. And I was like, this can be funny because Jason hates that shit. And I was like, I went into it knowing, I was like, there's a very good chance he's just going to freak out and, like, roast me. And I was like, okay, this is a challenge because I'm going to go in there. I'm going to present my case. I'm going to say all my things. And if I can win him over, you know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of like when I was like kind of sparring with Jorjani, and every once in a while he'd be like, I agree with everything you said. And I'm like, fuck yeah. Like that's a win. Right. So, like, with Jason Brashears, like, by the end of it, he was like, because at the beginning he was like, oh, more woo-woo stuff. And by the end he was like, I'm digging this. I'm really digging this. Like, he was all on board. I was like, sweet, man. I'm like, bringing him over to the light side. But yeah, so I want him to come back on. I want to interview him because he does all the interviewing. He's always talking, like, so I want to bring him on so that I can have him tell his story and all of his new stuff. So that's one of the next ones. So
and the sun weather guy, Ben
Davidson, yeah. A few people suggested him, and yeah, I'm a huge fan of his. I've been following him for years. So that would be awesome if he wanted to be on. Yeah, he was just on Limitless with Matt, but yeah, he's awesome. Howdy, I like Howdy. But anyways, yeah, so just keep those coming, and let's get into this week's stuff, right? So we had a couple cool episodes. We talked about a lot of different things. I really wanted to talk to Jason about his new book coming up, Thenosis, because it's about the afterlife. And, I had just done a few episodes about the afterlife and reincarnation, and I was like, ooh, this would be perfect. And that was like my plan, but then we literally just started talking. Like, there was no setup or anything. It was, and we didn't really have a plan. So it just went.
You had to, like, add an intro because, like, you guys didn't even... Like, you didn't even, like, really introduce him or anything, right?
I had, like, an introduction in my head and everything too. I was like, okay, I'm gonna give him a proper introduction. But we just, like, it was like, next thing you know, we're like an hour in, and I was like, oh shit, like, I didn't even, like, there was no point where I was like, welcome to Conscious Observers. This is, So yeah, I had to go back and do a little intro. So but anyways, and I definitely didn't talk as much as I wanted to about the Gnosis and about the afterlife and stuff, just because we just were going on all sorts of different tangents, and it was a lot of fun. So anyways, for those of you that don't know, Jason Jorjani is a he's a philosopher, like first and foremost, right? That's his main thing. But he's like one of the most scholarly people you ever meet. I mean, he's so well read, so well versed. He has so much information, knows so many things, and he's able to really connect dots in a way that most people can't. And when he says something, like there were several things that he said where I was like, like at the time I didn't dismiss it, but at the time I was like, that's not jiving with what I think. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, he's making a good point. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, shit, I think he's right. So it's one of those things where it's like, I try to take everybody's, like, even if I agree with them or not or whatever, I always try to like kind of just consider it. I don't want to dismiss anything. And his stuff is persuasive, not because he's trying to persuade you, because he never goes at it like, I'm going to try to convince you of something. He just lays out so much empirical evidence and so much data that you're just like, it's kind of hard to argue with. Having said that, I think that like when you're, a hammer, everything's a nail kind of a thing. And sometimes like, I think he kind of skips over some of the, like, there's other data points that might counter some of the things. And I don't think he does it knowingly. But there was a few times when I was like, well, I mean, I could say this and it would kind of counter that argument, but that would be a more like a positive thing. And it wouldn't, so it's one of those things where everything he says is right on. And these are all, and he'll be the first to tell you, these are all just probabilities and possibilities. Like none of these are certainties. And there's so much data that backs up everything he says. The only reason I even say what I just said is because I had some people that were like, hey, like this stuff's kind of dark, and it's like, well, I mean, a lot of this data is suggesting that we're going in this kind of dark timeline. So, that is what it is. But there's also been so many times lately where it looked like we were going down a dark timeline and we just stopped and changed course, like as a collective. I mean, look at how many times it looks like we were about to drive off a cliff and here we are, still alive and kicking. So it's like, like I told him, I was like, we keep surprising myself, like as a collective, like we're not driving off the cliff. We keep going up to the edge and backing off. And that's scary that we keep going up to the edge like this. And that's his point. So he's like, well, how many times are we going to go up to the edge and back off before we actually drive off the edge? And if we're like, have all these edges, it's like at a certain point, you're just surrounded by edges. And that's kind of his point, is like this convergent catastrophe thing that we're coming up against, that, at a certain point, your luck runs out. And I totally get it, right? But I have to just hang on to that hope that, well, I've thought this before, and there's been plenty of times before where I've been like, okay, here we go. This is it. And then, something or someone saves us, or common sense kicks in, or whatever. So, I kind of throw that in as a preface to, like, when you watch these episodes, these are all possibilities, things that might happen. And they're data backed possibilities, but it doesn't mean they're certainties at all. So we still have free will, and it's up to us to change course and to make sure that we don't go down those paths. So look at these 2 episodes with Jason as like a almost like a warning, like watch them and say, okay, this is where we're headed, guys. So let's stop, let's get our stuff together and stop. You know what I mean? So that's sort of my take on this, is like, I loved talking to him, but it's like I immediately had to go and I had to like give myself a pep talk. Like, okay, like how can I help to prevent this stuff? You know what I mean? Because, if you see yourself driving off a cliff, you don't just keep going, right? You stop, you turn, you do whatever. So anywho, that was kind of my take on it. But it's interesting stuff. I mean, all the stuff we talked about, like, I'll just kind of run down. I'll do a quick little, like kind of the greatest hits of it, So we started off talking about, he has the spectral revolution that he writes a lot about. And it's very interesting. It has to do with, merging all the different worlds that we're in, like this physical world with the spirit world, with the consciousness, with afterlife, and all the things, and merging that. It's super fascinating. And that's stuff that I focus on and think about, is like, okay, we're in the physical, but we know there's a spirit world, but then what's beyond that? And really just trying to like figure out this map of reality. And he's done a really good job with that. And the connecting piece is like the morphic resonance fields that like Rupert Sheldrake talks a lot about, that like there's this field that connects everything. So even though like me and Sarah are sitting here and we're 2 different people, like we share thoughts a lot of times. Like I know what she's thinking and stuff. She knows what I'm thinking. We've had a lot of synchronicities and stuff. There's this field between us. And then like there's a field between even us and you guys out there. And then like animals have a field and plants have a field, and there's a human collective, and then like Earth, Gaia has an intelligence field, and there's these, they're called morphic resonance fields. It's what accounts for a lot of like psi things like telepathy, and like when you think about somebody and they text you or call you and that kind of stuff. So it's this connection between the seen and the unseen worlds, the spirit world and the physical world, the different layers of reality. Those are the morphic resonance fields. So we talked about that for a bit. We went through some philosophical debates about how I think that consciousness is evolving and that society is evolving. And he was very quick to what was he fond of saying? It's so funny. Let me disturb your peace. I was cracking up because I would go on a run. I'd be like, hey man, here's why I think we're doing okay. And he'd be like, let me disturb your peace. And then he would say, and I would be like, God damn it, you're absolutely right. So if you're listening out there, Jace, you didn't disturb my peace. It's like you were that, like that rational voice, that logical voice that like I sometimes try to, like, it's like the angel and the devil. And sometimes you're just like, I don't want to hear it right now. I know you're right, but I want to hear it right now. So, not like living in denial, just sometimes I try to just focus on the positive, but it doesn't mean you ignore, the other side. So it'd be funny when he would disturb my peace. And one of the things he disturbed my peace on was that I was like, if you look at like the trajectory of humanity and like all these, like, even though we have 8 billion humans and 120 years ago we only had 2 billion humans, so it's 4 times more people, like most major crimes and genocides and wars and famines, and most of those things have gone down. So I was like, hey, the reincarnation cycle is working, we're learning, we're growing, right? And then he brought up all these valid points about why that's just not the case, why it's the case on certain metrics, but how we should be so much, and I agree 100%, we should be so much further ahead right now than we are. Like if you think about, like why aren't we zipping around in 0 point energy? Why are we still using fossil fuels? Why are we, have we not been back to the moon? Why are we still fighting and still, have these religious crusades about to, come back into style? And like, why are we still acting, as primitive as we are? So on one hand, I'm like, well, I mean, not that long ago, we were literally, had public guillotines and stuff, right? And now, you know what I mean? We're pretty civilized. So I'm like, there's certain areas where we've come so far. We're doing so good. And then there's certain areas where, yeah, obviously we're still being oppressed and we're still kind of cavemen, like,
Absolutely.
So it's tough. It's tough. It's like, I want to sing our praises and pat ourselves on the back, but he's quick to be like, well, let's not celebrate just yet. we have come a long way in certain areas, but we still have a long way to go in others. And he reminds us that a lot of this is because we're in a control system. This isn't necessarily just because humans are ignorant or uncivilized or whatever, that there's actually this oppressive control system that's keeping us in this state. And then he goes and he lays out all sorts of evidence for the religious control systems, the obviously political and governmental control systems, but a lot of it is these religious control systems that have so many people fighting other people and separated from other people, and that's a big part of it. It's like, if you have a different religion than me, if I was religious and you were religious and we had different religions, we wouldn't be married.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't happen. Because,
well, I mean, there's certain, like you think about like Catholicism and stuff, like people like in Judaism, like they like convert to be able to marry certain people and stuff. Like people are so strong in their religion. They're like, oh, I can't marry someone that's not of the same religion as me. So like, just think of the separation that's like creating just right there,
Yeah. And I mean, it's crazy if you think about it. Like, people talk about racism and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, I mean, there's all sorts of, mixed marriages and relationships and stuff. And that's awesome. It should be that way. But then when it comes to like strict religions, like if someone's very religious, 2 people are very religious, it's very rare that you have marriages between 2 people with opposing religions that are like very religious. Like that's very rare. So there's this stark division in our world, and so much of it is based on these religions. And he goes into that this is orchestrated, that not that religion is bad necessarily, because humans create religions out of good for good intentions and purposes. But then it's along the way they get sort of weaponized and used, against us. And you can just see that. I mean, look out in the world. And then you see these religions that are they have these eschatologies, and they're acting out like their own end times and stuff. And you're like watching them, and you're just like, it's like y'all are using your religion as like a script, like a blueprint, to like do this thing. And it's like, don't do that. That's stupid, right? It's like your thing you're acting out is like literally the end of the world. So like, don't act that out, Like, so anyways, but you're watching all these different religions like act out their like end time scripts, and it's insane. And he laid out some good information about like why that is done, how he thinks it's these sadistic Nordic archons that are, they have their own agendas, their own reasons for doing this that he investigates, but that they're a big part of the people that are sort of manipulating and I don't know, they're the ones that he thinks are running the control system that has this controlled, and they're the ones that are fabricating and manipulating these religions to get all the people to fight and to do all the things they're doing. But it's not all bad, because like if you go back to like Jason Jorjani thinks that like the Greek gods, for example, right? You had the Olympians and you had the Titans. Those are Nordics, and that it's just a story. They're telling stories, like, so all is like Zeus and Prometheus and Enlil and Enki and all these different stories from all these different religions and cultures are telling the same story of like these rival factions of these beings, right? And the beings are what now we call the Nordics, just because it's a kind of a nickname that was given to them, because a lot of them have like a Scandinavian kind of a look to them. But essentially they're just these beings, the Anunnaki, the Greek gods, the Devas, all these different, higher deities, even the fallen angels and the watchers, all of them are the same people, essentially, just different cultures and religions that give them different names and all that. And the good news is, in all of those stories, almost every single one, there's a good side and a bad side, right? So it's not like there's just these terrible, evil psychopaths like running the world and like messing with everybody. It's like, yes, that's happening, but then there's good guys that are like fighting them along the way, and there's like this battle, and humans are kind of stuck in it. And it's kind of like when you have parents that are fighting and the kids get caught in the fight, kind of a deal. That's the way I see our reality, is like you have these parents, like, because these are our progenitors. If you look at like the Anunnaki story, they're who created humans and stuff. So like we're like descendants of them or children of them, and they're fighting, and we're caught in the middle of it. And it's like that's what all these stories are throughout time. Is basically, we call them gods just because we don't know any better, because we see them as gods because they seem like godly.
Life,
yeah, they're big, they're powerful, they have magic powers and stuff, but by all accounts they're people. Like even in the Book of Watchers, in the the Book of Enoch and stuff, or the Dead Sea Scrolls, when they talk about the fallen angels and everything, they mated with humans, women, and had offspring, the Nephilim. And those Nephilim are hybrids between the gods and humans, right? Well, if you look at like Greek mythology, that's exactly what happened with the demigods. So like Hercules and all the demigods, they were children of the gods having children with mortals. Well, it's the exact same story. Gods and mortals, fallen angels and humans, the Nephilim, the demigods, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
it's all the same stories. So it's like this has been going on for a very, very long time. And but it's funny, because like all of these like UFO stuff, you know what I mean? People that argue about UFOs and different alien types and stuff. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist, right? I think Jorjani is I don't ever hear him too much. I mean, he has a pretty terrestrial explanation for most aliens. So I haven't heard him, I don't want to put words in his mouth, I haven't heard him come out and say he doesn't believe that there's other aliens out there. But he is leaning more towards that, like, the gray aliens are like these robots that the Nordics made, the reptilians, or even like, so even if you go to like the Mesopotamian, like the Sumerian stories, the Anunnaki and stuff, they even talk about how humans weren't the first creation. Like they were trying to make other beings, and they failed. Right. So they had all these like prototypes of humans essentially before they got to humans. So it's like he was like, well, I mean, when they first came here, when the Nordics first came here, or the whatever, what we call Atlanteans, there was dinosaurs on Earth, you know. So if they were going to hybridize something, they probably would have hybridized a dinosaur with their DNA to see if they can make, because they were trying to make some sort of a, you know, a worker being. So he's even theorized that the reptilians that everyone sees, that we, you know, call reptilians, that we think come from other planets, might actually be, you know, this hybrid, like humanoid from Earth, right? Literally, like these Atlanteans mixed with dinosaurs, you know, like a velociraptor or something comes up with a reptilian. So that would even make that what we call an alien, would be a terrestrial thing, right? It's from Earth. It's like a chimera, you know. And the Atlanteans were all about that. Like all the stories of the Atlanteans were them making, you know, that's where the Minotaur and mermaids and all that stuff was like hybrid humans and animals. So the reptilian aliens could literally be a human dinosaur hybrid. Same with the Greys. The Greys kind of seem more like an AI human hybrid.
And he brought up the whole like robot, like AI, like actual like technology being susceptible to like an EMP attack. And that's why like he thought that the Greys were like robots, but natural. Organic.
Yeah. I thought that was super fascinating and really terrifying. We were talking about, and great point, because we were talking about, like I told him, I was like, okay, well, you know, he was laying out why he thinks that the bad Nordics, the Archons, are going to try to like kind of take us out, or at least allow these catastrophes to happen, and not like help us. And I was like, okay, well, next factor in there is, you know, we're making all these robots, right? So like Elon Musk wants to have like something like 1 billion robots by the end of the decade, something crazy like that. And they're mass producing these things like crazy. The AI is getting really good. At some point, they're going to have Neuralink in them. They're going to have this kind of neural interface that makes them
like
sort of
kind of crazy. Like, but we live in like, you know, a smallish town. Like it's like we just got like Uber Eats and that kind of stuff in the last 18 months on a regular basis. Like seriously, there just isn't like
we don't
live
get
in a tourist.
We
town,
get stuff
so
way after everyone else.
But like, you know, you guys went to Atlanta and you saw like those little robots that were like delivering food. So it's like, oh man, we just got Uber Eats. So like people bring it to your door and they've got like little robots doing it. You know,
we were in Vegas last month and they have like all the taxis cars, don't even have drivers, like driverless taxis. So yeah, and I mean, pretty soon you're going to be literally seeing robots walking around town. People are going to have robots in their house. Like it's I mean, it's already happening. So, and it's about to happen really fast. Like not just Tesla Optimus, but Figure is another robotics company that's making really badass robots. And you know, imagine when we have AGI, like artificial general intelligence, and these humanoid robots, and they're out in the streets by the millions and possibly billions. Just imagine that. So I told him, I was like, okay, well, that's an X factor, right? Like if it's this whole thing where like humans are kind of like susceptible to these Nordics because the Nordics are more powerful than us, right? Because they've been around a lot longer and they've developed and they have technology and powers. I was like, well, we're going to have like robot armies. So how does that play in? Does that level the playing field at all? And he was like, no, let me disturb your peace, because he was like, every single one of those is susceptible to an EMP, and just a few strategic EMP blasts, and all of a sudden all of our robots are gone. And then that's when he brought up that the Greys are like these biosynthetic manufactured humanoid robots that are specifically made to not be vulnerable to EMPs.
Right.
You know, so that way they still always maintain the upper hand. Like nothing we can create can compete, because ours is all technological. Ours is all electricity based and internet based and all these things. And even Starlink and all these things, it would not be hard for them to just, because I was asking him, I was like, why, if this is the case, if we have these controllers that are controlling an Earth, and that he thinks they live inside the Earth and inside the moon by, he thinks probably the millions, if not the millions, like, you know, large amounts. Okay. Because I was thinking maybe it's a breakaway civilization. There's not a whole lot of them, kind of an elite crew, you know, like they survive the cataclysm, kind of a close knit, you know, there's not millions, there might be maybe hundreds, you know, who knows? I have no idea how many, but you don't see a lot of them. You usually just see a couple at a time. But he is under the impression that there's actually a lot of them. But I was like, okay, well, why would they let us like develop things like the internet? And I
Right.
was like, why could I even be sitting here talking to you, right?
Right.
Like, we're spreading information. Isn't
Yeah.
this bad? And he basically is under the impression that they're so far advanced that they're not really worried, that they know what we're doing and what we're up to. And it's like, once we get to a certain point,
Yeah.
they might be like, okay, like now we got to do something. But generally speaking, there's nothing we're doing where they're like, uh-oh, because you got to think, like, say, like, they've been around for, seems like tens of thousands of years, right? Look at how far our technology's come in the last 100 years,
Yeah.
right? See, look how more advanced we are now than in 1925. 1925, they had nothing, right? I mean, cars had just come out. So, like, now, look at what we're doing. So imagine tens of thousands of years of
Right.
advancement. So it's like, you know what I mean? It makes you think like we think that we're powerful. We think we're alpha, and the impression is now these guys are way more advanced. But they're people, and Jason's very clear about that. These aren't gods. These aren't aliens. These aren't, angels. These are people. And they're just advanced people. So it makes you rethink things. What it does for me is it shows me the potential. It shows me what we're capable of, what the ceiling is like, and what our potential is. Yeah. Like, this is not, we're not there. Like, this is not, we're not fully evolved, fully activated humans. We're somewhere still in our like kindergarten, elementary years. You know what I mean? Like, we have a lot of development that we can go. So when I see them, I don't look at it as like, oh no, these are these evil overlords controlling us. I look at it and I'm like, man, that's pretty cool. Like, that means that like we can have those. I mean, they're telepathic. They live hundreds, if not thousands of years. They have wild technologies that we consider alien. You know what I mean? Like, they, by most accounts, they're really pretty people. Like, everyone says they're beautiful, piercing eyes and flowy hair and golden skin and all stuff. So it's like, okay, well, so that's the human potential. Like, that's a fully activated human. We went into some other ideas that maybe they're actual, like, kind of not synthetic avatars, but like almost like CRISPR, like lab created, like human avatars that he says that their consciousness, like they can literally take their consciousness out of one avatar and put it in another
Clone.
Yeah. So they might not be like born the same way that like we're born, like natural childbirth, but they're still like real, what I mean? They're not robots, but they've just mastered like the
perfecting
art,
of the clone
vessel
and all that stuff,
and the understanding that consciousness is fluid. It's not like, like our brain doesn't create consciousness, and consciousness isn't stuck in a body. It's fluid.
Right.
You can move it from one vessel to another.
Right.
And that's something that like I focus on in my like spiritual journey. That's something that like the old mystics always talked about, Gnosticism, Buddhism, and Hinduism, all that kind of stuff, that like your consciousness is universal. It survives death. Reincarnation is real, all those things. So it's like, okay, well, if they're super advanced, and they would not only know this and understand this, they would have like methods or technologies for, okay, this body's dying, I'm going to move my consciousness to this body, right? Like that, in everything I've learned and understood, that's completely doable. Like there's nothing that says you can't do that. And it seems like they've mastered that. So that's pretty cool. So I was just trying to pull some positive things out of all this, right? Because like a lot of it was like, okay, well, this part of the world's going to be destroyed, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, but they have like UFOs, and like they can do cool stuff, so it's like, so that's cool, like, like, I don't know, what if there's like a job placement program where they're looking at like some of the surface humans, and they're like, okay, like, you guys, we like y'all can come with us, right? So
maybe it's the open free thinkers.
Yeah, if you can't beat them, join them, kind of a thing.
So
see if they're hiring. I don't know.
Inner Earth.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I look at it like we're still here. Humans have been around a long time, and most, if you believe these stories and you believe Jorjani, these Nordics have been around way longer.
Right.
So that means that they haven't wiped us out. They haven't let us wipe ourselves out. They either have saved us from these catastrophes. And I mean, if you go back into the literature, every time there's a cataclysm, what happens? These these people come from the stars or come from the sea and restart civilization, right?
Absolutely.
So
The little bag.
Yeah, their little bag, exactly.
The fish people.
Yeah, the fish people. Yeah, Quetzalcoatl and the Anunnaki, and even like the not the Hopi, the ones the Dogon tribe. They talk about the same thing, the star people. So there's this recurring theme of like these beings that Jorjani would call the Nordics, the Archons. He talks about how there's two factions: there's good and there's bad, and I see the good ones fighting for us, and not just fighting for us, but actually helping us and making sure we survive. And I think that's pretty cool. So I don't know. I don't know what to do with all this. I'm just trying to, like I said, like pull out the positives. But I feel it. I mean, I've seen some of these things happen. Like it's obvious when you see these interactions in our timeline where something happens to prevent us from going down a bad timeline, and it causes these little glitches in the matrix and these little butterfly effects and new Mandela effects happen and stuff like that. I really think that that's the good guys preventing something terrible from happening, and I've seen that. I mean, everyone's seen it. You just don't realize because they're like kind of stitching together timelines, editing time. So you just see the after effects. But there's been a few of them that have happened where I'm just like, I get a feeling, I'm like, somebody just intervened,
Yeah.
And I think it's the good guys. So
just, I hope so.
Yeah. Anyways, so and that's like this whole Atlantean, like these beings, the Atlanteans, according to Plato, were these demigods. They were these hybrids of the gods and the humans and the mortals. So this goes back to the whole, Lemuria and Atlantean type of things in the past, where you kind of had the good and the bad kind of a deal. And it makes you wonder if like the good guys were the Lemurians and the bad guys were the Atlanteans kind of a deal, and like the remnants of each, they're still like, because like even the Hopi, I did a video a few weeks back about the Hopi prophecy, and
splitting timeline painting.
Yeah, thanks, Marshall. So going back to the Hopi, they talked about how they didn't call them Lemurians and Atlanteans; they had different names for them, but it was very obvious that they were describing the Lemurians and the Atlanteans.
Same.
And they talked about how they were warring at the end and how they kind of all destroyed themselves and destroyed the Earth for the most part, and then different remnants went different places. And it's like, okay, are we still seeing that same, like they were fighting back then and they're still fighting now, and it's like the remnants of each? You have the good guys and the bad guys kind of a thing. Is this just this age-old rivalry that just never stops? That's what it seems like to me. It seems like there's just these two factions that for forever have been kind of fighting in different forms, and they're so different than us because it's like that cargo cult thing, how like we can go land on some tropical island in the middle of nowhere with some indigenous tribe that's never had contact with civilization. You can go land there now, and they will look at you like you're an alien. They'll think that you're a time traveler. They'll, and that's a human on Earth right now, and we're a human on Earth right now.
Right.
But we're so different from them. They would think that we're either demons or aliens, right? Or gods, exactly. So that's the cargo cult thing. So knowing that, and we're all humans on Earth at the same time, imagine a human from Earth, but from 50,000 years ago.
Yeah.
That's been developing the entire time. They're not cavemen. They're the opposite. They're incredibly advanced.
Yeah.
So it's like,
or you would at least hope so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what we see, all these like these kind of UFOs and these anti-gravitic craft and this whole, like the fact that Antarctica, like Jorjani thinks that Antarctica is Atlantis, and that there was like not necessarily a pole flip, but what happens is that it's called this crustal displacement, where basically whenever at the poles of the Earth, it's all ice, right? And as that ice melts, the weight redistributes on the surface, and it's kind of like if you took like say an orange and you just move the peel around the orange. It's called crustal displacement, where like the whole surface of the Earth shifts because the weight changes. And then when that happens, all the continents and everything shift, right? So he thinks that like Atlantis was actually where Argentina is now,
right?
And it went down. So it used to be.
Where did he say that he thought that was under ice? Where did he say he thought was under ice?
What do you mean?
He said that he thought that Argentina.
Well, Antarctica, what we call Antarctica now,
shifts,
was Atlantis, and it was where Argentina is now, and it shifted down, like 90 degrees or so. And it froze over because now it's at the pole. So underneath all that ice is Antarctica, and he thinks that's going to happen again, that it happens around every 12,000 or 13,000 years. And when it happens again, Antarctica is going to shift to another place, right? Everything shifts. It's like moving chairs, musical chairs. And so when it shifts, it's going to thaw out. And that's why all the governments and stuff are like,
They have the treaty.
they have the treaty, so no one can go to Antarctica except on these like very restricted areas. Like you can take a special boat down to a special little cove, and then they have some like scientific areas, but it's still very regulated. And Antarctica is huge, and we only have a few people there in a few very remote places.
Right.
But these countries are like kind of planting their flag because they're like, well, if everything does shift and it does thaw out, we want to have our flag here. We want to have a stake in this. So why are they doing that? Right. Like, why? Why do all the countries go down there and put their little flag down there and put like 10 people in a little base and say, we have our scientists doing science? There's no freaking science happening there. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, except for the neutrino detector they have there. But besides that, it's just a way for them to stake their claim and put a flag there, you know, just in case. That's all it is. And then we have this Antarctic treaty where no one can fly below a certain latitude, which is crazy. And the whole world agreed to it. When does the whole world agree to anything? You know? And they said they're doing it because they don't want us to disturb the ecosystem. It's a gigantic block of ice.
What ecosystems anywhere else on Earth does the whole Earth get together and say we need to protect this? I'm talking about like even including the rainforest, which is like the lungs of the Earth. You know, we kind of need air to breathe. But it's okay. We can chop that down.
Right.
You know,
all of a sudden we're concerned about ecosystems.
But the ice must keep the ice safe.
We destroy ecosystems that we live in, but this ecosystem that no one lives in, let's protect it by all means. And it's crazy. And they say they don't want people flying over it because they might get hurt. You know, because if they were to like have an emergency, no one could help them, or whatever. It's like,
but people climb up Mount Everest. And they have to sign a waiver to say, hey, if I get injured, no one's coming to save me.
We do. I mean,
they literally hike past people.
It makes no sense. So it's very obvious that they're protecting something. And there's like different islands there, like literally called like Rothschild Island and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, Antarctica is very strange. And what Jorjani thinks is that is Atlantis, and that whenever the crust shifts again and it changes where it is on Earth, it will thaw out, and we're going to find all these remnants of ancient civilizations, and that Atlantis will rise again, and the countries will start fighting over that. It's interesting, you know. They're doing the same thing with Greenland, where all of a sudden, like, you know, Trump wants to take over Greenland, and it's like, well, Greenland's like, I know there's some resources there, but most of them are unobtainable because it's frozen over. But what if they know that, well, it's not going to be frozen over forever. Right? So you see these people making these moves in the like geopolitical world that don't really make any sense. But it's like, well, they're looking at the big game. You know, we're looking at like, that doesn't make sense right now. They're like, no, it doesn't make sense right now, but in 20 years it's going to make sense. You know, so
crazy stuff, man.
So that's a lot of what we were talking about. And you know, he brought up one other point that I thought was really crazy. I never thought about this. So when I did my 2050 video, which I know a lot of you have seen, and we go into the remote viewer data of 2050, which was like 6,000 remote viewers when Stephen Schwartz and the Mobius program, and they remote viewed the year 2050, and they saw that basically they were on the other side of some big thing. They think it was probably sun related, maybe some sort of micronova or something like that, but something really bad happened in like the 2040s. And it might have been like convergent catastrophes, like a lot of different things. But anyways, the world was a very different place in 2050. And a lot of people lived in these like agrarian rural communities, very small. The cities were mostly deserted. Everything was very different. It wasn't like, you know, apocalyptic or anything. It was just different. Like the world had changed. And he brought up a point. So Lynn Buchanan, amazing remote viewer, he was in Project Stargate. He remote viewed the same time period and said that what happened, and this is a wild take on this, because what the 2050 report said is that very few people flew, that like commercial air travel was not a thing. And I thought that was interesting. It's like, I wonder what happened to where people aren't flying. And Stephen Schwartz said his data suggested that it's because we have all these virtual reality things and people just have different modes of like going on vacation virtually, or having like he said you literally had this way where your consciousness could go into like this, like it's like a VR headset, but like instead of you having like a virtual thing, like you felt like you were there, like a total recall type thing. And so people just did their meetings that way and their travel that way, and they didn't travel as much. They kind of stayed home, and they had these agrarian communities and stuff. And part of me was like, well, it's kind of cool, right? I don't know. And he was like, well, not if you look at it this way. Lynn Buchanan said that what he saw when he remote viewed the Earth around that time is that the beings that we call these Nordics and stuff that live kind of inside the Earth and in the moon, he thinks that this is a controlled demolition, that they're basically taking the Earth back, that they are either creating these, what's called a polycrisis, which just means a whole bunch of crises at once. They're either creating it or they're letting it happen because they want basically the population of Earth to reduce significantly. And then the ones that are left are going to go in like areas, of the world, and then they get other areas. And the areas they take over, according to Lynn Buchanan, are the cities, the industrialized parts, and that humans, like us, get the agrarian rural areas. And that this is a way for what you'd call the Atlanteans to bring back their Atlantean civilization by basically, relegating surface humans to these farming communities of such, and them taking over the metropolitan cities and areas, right? So I thought that was interesting, and that's why we don't have air travel, because then we would be able to see what's happening. So if everyone's kind of confined to their little areas and doing their little Zoomy remote, like virtual things, then they're kind of oblivious to what's going on in the rest of the world. And so I thought that was very interesting because it actually jives with the 2050 data. It just like shows it from a totally different perspective of, like instead of this just being some sort of like a thing that happens and everyone's on their own, it's actually kind of a coordinated, what he calls a controlled demolition of society. But not like an extermination, right? Because there's still plenty of humans left. They have a totally different way of life. Anyways, so I thought that was interesting. That was based on Lynn Buchanan, who's an amazing, very credible remote viewer, evidently. And I'm not privy to that data, but that's what Jason was saying. So just a alternative future where maybe the Atlanteans do rise again, Atlantis thaws out, and they take back their civilization, like they put themselves back on top. Yeah. And we turn into farmers and ranchers. Sounds kind of nice, actually. Right.
I just need some water to put my feet in occasionally.
Yeah. Can we be beachy farmers? Yeah. Is that a thing?
We'll be like Ange, the turmeric queen.
Yeah. Like mangoes and bananas and
papayas.
stuff. Papayas, yeah. Pineapples.
Yeah. All those things. I don't think they grow up here.
Yeah, we don't have any of that stuff.
Panhandle of Florida.
No. We have oranges. Yeah, we can do oranges.
So.
They'll need oranges in the future.
Yeah.
Post-apocalyptic oranges. That's going to be our new name. It's our company name. Anyways, this is when it goes off the rails. Okay.
So part 2.
Then that's just part 1, and that's only a few parts of part 1. But I guess we touched on a few things in part 2. It all kind of merged together. So anyways, then we went to. I'll just fast forward to when we started talking about his next book, which is called Thenosis. And it's about the afterlife. And it's really interesting because the way he goes at this, if you've ever read his book, Closer Encounters, again, we're talking about Jason Reza Jorjani. So he wrote a book called Closer Encounters. And it's like this really cool book about the UFO phenomenon because it's like more of like I don't even know what you would call it, because it's a research book, like basically based on all the research of all the different like UFO phenomenon and the different types of phenomenon, and not leading you to any one conclusion. It's basically, I think he draws like 5 different conclusions of what the phenomenon can be based on all of the empirical research. So what it does is it allows you to make your conclusion. He's not telling you what the UFO phenomenon is. He's saying based on all of this data, there's a ton of data. Based on all this, here are kind of the 5 main possibilities that it could be. And maybe it's two of these, maybe it's three of these, maybe it's all five of them, maybe it's none of them. We don't know, but those are like the top contenders. And it's really cool because it's a very dense and elaborate book showing all the empirical evidence. None of this is opinions or anything. This is based on the facts and the data. But even after all that, he still couldn't really draw any determinate, like definite conclusions because the phenomenon is tricky. There's so many possibilities and it's very layered. So he did the same thing with the afterlife. And that's what Thanosis is about the afterlife. And this isn't like Jason's opinion of the afterlife. This is based on tons of empirical data, like the Bardo States and the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the work by Dr. Ian Stevenson. He has an insane amount of empirical research about reincarnation. There's so much that we can use and that he can use. So I'm really excited about that book because he, he's going into another realm. Like the UFO phenomenon is one very hot topic and very polarizing topic, but so is the afterlife because there's so many like religious and ideological like belief systems that people have on the afterlife. And so he's going at it through this very sober minded, analytical, and philosophical, angle of, okay, let's just look at it, and just see if we can find an objective reality here. And so I'm really excited about it. And one of the things that he got into when we're talking about it is the ability for humans. And even when we're talking about some of the stuff he shared was from like 70s and 80s Soviet researchers and scientists being able to manipulate the afterlife. And because, he believes the same thing as me, that this is a informational cosmos and everything is data at the end of the day, that everything is binary, zeros and ones. And when it comes to information, you can transmit information, you can save information, you can manipulate information, hack information, and store information. You can do all sorts of stuff with information. So if our soul is information and everything's information, and it transmits back and forth between us and our higher self, the physical and the non-physical side, and even when you die, it goes and it's stored somewhere in some sort of Akashic record database. That's all information. And that there's some evidence that Soviet scientists are able to manipulate that. And this is back in the Cold War days. So who knows what the hell they can do now. But there was this one particular scientist that could create artificial reincarnation, basically like plant like past life memories in people to the point where even if they're doing like past life regressions and stuff, they fully believe that was a past life and then it affects them now and all this kind of stuff. So so it's kind of, leave it to Jorjani to somehow plant this seed that you never thought was even possible, that even the afterlife and spirit world is susceptible to manipulation and hacking. But it actually tracks because if everything is information and there's beings that are incredibly advanced that have figured out ways to, work all that stuff. Yeah, of course, there's going to be people that have figured out ways to hack it. So what do you do with all this? My takeaway on all this is that my takeaway with all this goes back to like Gnosticism. And what Gnosticism teaches you is that there's always going to be false gods. There's going to be false religions. There's going to be false leaders and false idols. There's always going to be stuff that's trying to deceive you and lie to you and trick you and bullshit you and all that stuff, right? But that we, you, me, her, everybody has like a spark of divinity in you, like a little piece of the divine creator inside of you, because it's a fractal, it's a holographic universe. And the way that works is just like every cell in your body can recreate, it has the information to recreate your entire freaking body. Because it's like the way it's fractalized, it doesn't take much data to contain all that information. And that's how the universe works. So we are pieces of source, and we have all the information inside of us to recreate all of this. It's like we're all connected because we're all made of the same stuff and we all have the same source code in us. The whole point of this is that what they teach you in Gnosticism is that you can tell if somebody's lying to you, and you can tell if somebody's bullshitting you, and you can tell if it's a false religion or false idol or false god or false anything, because you know inside of you what the truth is. And all you have to do is be quiet, be still, and think and be like, does this resonate? Like, does this make sense? How does this make me feel? And don't think, because thinking is where you get in trouble, because then you'll be like, well, my religion tells me this. Well, that's thinking, that's remembering what you're told, right? It's about your feeling. So you have to say, okay, does this feel right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And no one can ever lie to you or bullshit you if you go with your feelings, because we have amazing ability to feel the truth.
Yeah.
So there's of course going to be people lying to you, and there's of course going to be people that manipulate and stuff. And even in the afterlife, there's a chance that you go in the afterlife and there's some bullshit there too, right? So what do? You feel it. You feel like, is this truth? Is this not? Should I go into the light? Should I go over here? Should I go here? Should I go here? Should I trust this person or should I not? Just because they're in the afterlife doesn't mean they're good. There's probably assholes in the afterlife too. Who knows? So, you just have to like use your discernment, right? And your discernment is literally you, inside you, like that gut, that connection to source.
Yep.
And as long as you go with that, you will never be deceived, right? Because nothing can deceive that. They can just deceive your mind. They can play tricks on you, and they can tell you stuff, and they can scare you and do that kind of stuff, but they can never trick you in here, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's my takeaway, is like all this stuff can seem dark and everything, but life's fucking crazy. I mean, everything's trying to kill you, it seems. So it's like you have to be tough, and you have to be like, okay, like it doesn't mean like don't believe anything. It just means be skeptical, be tough, and just kind of like, like know that some things are tricky. There are tricky things. Everything's got to eat. There's always going to be bullies out there and stuff. So anyways, all this Archon stuff and Nordics and Atlanteans and all that, that's how I look at it. Like, they're just playing their roles. They're doing their thing. Everyone's trying to survive. So, it's all good. It's nothing new. So, but it was a fascinating conversation. So,
Absolutely.
that was my take.
Big.
It was big.
Lots of information. And I mean, like, we talk about this kind of stuff pretty often. And I don't know, I had to take a break from this one a couple of times and just like sit and digest and okay, everything is going to be okay.
I mean, it challenges your worldview. It makes you think about things in a totally different way. And
well, I'm pretty much, like I try to see things from the very most positive, so
yeah,
it was a lot, but it was amazing. And I personally, and I saw in the comments as well, but like loved how it was like a conversation between the two of y'all rather than just like you spitting questions at him kind of a thing,
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to be respectful and have him talk the majority of the time, but I look at it like I like Jorjani. I always have, and it was like a very big honor for me personally to be able to talk to him. So I was like, well, I'm not just going to sit here and not, you know what I mean? Like I want to have a conversation with this dude, like that was my whole point. And then y'all just get to listen. Like it's like a bonus that the public gets to listen in on this conversation. But yeah, I definitely wanted it to be a conversation. I mean, there's a million things I wish I would have said, and I could do a whole nother, 3-hour thing with them easy. Again. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even want it to end. The only reason I even ended it is because it just, if you watched it till the end, it like kind of ended perfectly. Like, you know what I mean? And sometimes like ending interviews is awkward. Like when he was on Jesse Michaels, and I know Jesse had to end it because it went long, but like he was on a roll and he was just flowing and flowing and flowing. And basically Jesse was like, thank you so much for coming, man. And I was like, whoa, like he was like he wasn't done, you know what I mean? So like sometimes the end can be tough. So we got to this point where like the end it felt like that was the time to end it. And then, so I ended it because it just felt perfect, and then I was like, damn, I had so many more things I could have asked him, but you got to end it at some point, I guess, so I hope to do it again. And from judging from all the comments, I mean, people really, really liked it. And, so it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's a bit scary, but it's so interesting, it's so interesting. It's entertaining. That doesn't even really matter. It's like, but then again, you read the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita and basically every single religious text that there is, period, all end terribly. They all have such dark, like, kind of revelation type endings. So it's like, I guess we're just used to it. We're used to every story having some dark, twisted end, So I think it's like, I don't know, we're just used to it. So
we are, Alice.
Yeah. So, okay, now we're to the Q&A part. Thank you guys for listening. So, do we have some questions, Sarah?
Well, I don't know if anybody on the live has specific questions about the interview with Jorjani. I didn't know if you wanted to go through.
Okay, yeah, so we have some questions that were sent to us. But yeah, if y'all have any questions, just put them in the live. So Bob said, what can we do with this knowledge? Okay, so he says, although we can benefit from reincarnation, it seems like it's a trap. What can we do with this knowledge in the afterlife? So here's what I would say about it being a trap. And I've been very open about this. I think that it's a self-made trap. I always use the analogy of Van Wilder, right? So like if you go to school, say you go to college, and you go into a 4-year school, right? And you're supposed to be out in 4 years, but it takes you 20 years to graduate, and because it's your fault, you could say you're trapped in that school, right? It feels like you're stuck. It feels like you're never going to graduate. You're just there, you know what I mean? But that's a self-inflicted trap. And I really think that this reality we're in was created as a school. I call it the simulator. It's a simulator for consciousness development. So our consciousness comes in here to learn and to grow through all these experiences. Now, if we come in, we get our growth, we get our learning, and we leave, cool. Like that's what this place was made to do. But if we come in and we just get stuck, we create so much chaos and karma that we have to keep going back around, and we go around so many times that we lose track that we were ever anything before we came in here. And then we have so much karmic debt, and we got stuck in different belief system territories, and we just created this huge mess. Well, now we're stuck. But that doesn't mean that this was created as a trap. That doesn't mean that like whoever created all this was like, I got one. We came in here and we just got stuck. I think that's what happens because this place is addictive and this place can be crazy. But I don't think it was made to be a trap. So I don't think it's a trap, and I don't think we're stuck. I think that we just create a mess sometimes, and it's kind of a lot to unravel.
Imagine that.
Yeah, right. And that's part of the learning process. Is okay. How do I get unstuck? How do I get out of here? And the more I've been researching things like Hinduism and things like Buddhism. I've been on a big Buddhism kick, going into Tibetan and Zen Buddhism, I think is my favorite. But they talk a lot about this too, that this is like a school in a way. It's definitely not a trap or anything like that, but that you have to work to get out of it. Like there is this process, and that the physical body is the enlightenment vehicle, that you literally come in to this body so that you can like graduate and leave on the spirit side, right? So you can't just leave on the spirit side. You have to come into here to be able to. Are you doing some house cleaning?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Time out. Yeah, just know if y'all pop off in the comments, it's really easy to put you in timeout. So behave. But so yeah, a really cool thing that I've realized, this is how the interview ended with Jorjani, is that what we do in here in this physical life has a big ramification on the other side. Okay, so we come in here, and in Buddhism they call this the vehicle for enlightenment. So the human body is actually the vehicle for enlightenment, and that all the learning, all the growth at a spiritual level happens in the physical. So you would think it would happen in the spirit world, right? Like people think about the physical as being this like kind of, I don't know, like almost like it's just this worthless, pointless, like why are we even here kind of a thing. But when you talk to Buddhists, they're like, no, this is the important part. Like in the spirit side, you're kind of stuck. Like your soul, your spirit, whatever you want to call it, your consciousness over there, it is where it is, and it's kind of stuck there because it doesn't have free will. It can't roam around. It's kind of where it is, and it's based on our actions here, whether it ascends or descends, right? So your higher self wants you to do really good over here. That's why it wakes you up, and that's why it tries to get your attention, because it needs us to help it move up. If it ever wants to completely what they call moksha, where it's kind of like what Robert Monroe calls escape velocity. If you actually want to dislodge yourself from the spirit world, because the spirit world is just another layer of earth. If you actually want to dislodge yourself from it and be totally free just to go to what in Buddhism they call nirvana, just that pure enlightenment. If you want to be completely free, then you have to dislodge yourself from that like system over there. And the only way you do that is through enlightened living over here. So you have to come to earth, you have to be a human, you have to have an awakening, you have to be completely like unchained, and you have to, like they say, you have to be awake in your living life, your dream life, every part of your life, you're completely awake and aware. And then that carries over into the afterlife. And then when you're completely awake and aware in the afterlife, then you're like, okay, now I can go here instead, or I can go here instead, I can go wherever. But if you're, Maya, the illusion. Yeah, Maya literally means the illusion, and enlightenment is literally just meaning that you wake up to the fact that you're in a dream. So Maya is another word for dream. And so that's exactly what it is. It's like, this is a dream, this is an illusion, this is a video game, this is simulators, whatever you want to call it, whatever metaphor. And it's all the same thing. You come in here to learn, right? But at a certain point, you kind of get stuck because you just lost your way. And then your higher self on their side is like, every time you come in, it's like trying to like send you messages like, hey, come on, like, take it seriously, man, like get back on track, because there's no rush and people are having fun. Like living is fun. Earth is cool. Being human's cool. So there's not like a rush. It's not like we're like, like I'm not like, oh, I don't ever want to be human again or anything like that. So I'm not like in a rush. But at the same time, you want to take it seriously, because the more developed you are, the more enlightened and awake you are, then the more options you have. So put it this way, if you come into this life and you get super duper indoctrinated, you fall into like a belief system and you're totally brainwashed in a cult, all that kind of stuff. Then you go back over to the astral and spirit world, you take all that with you. And then you add that to your collective, and now you just brought everyone down. You just went down a peg, right? Or you get stuck in a belief system territory and you don't even make it back to your group, right? And now your group is fractured, and now you're even more fucked. So like what you do here is very important, because the whole point is wake up here, become enlightened. So then you're enlightened through everything. And then whenever you do pass over, you go back over there completely enlightened. Then you're not going to fall into any traps. You're not going to fall into any belief system territories. You go back to your crew, your higher self, your soul, and you go back, and then you like bring your new knowledge and your new understanding and your elevated way of thinking to the group. And now the whole group is elevated, and that's how you ascend, and that's how you create this escape velocity. So it puts extra importance on what we do here in the physical. This isn't just for fun. Like, have fun, but take it seriously. And so that's my long answer to Bob's short question about like, what do we do if this is all just kind of a trap,
Oh wait, that was a question there.
Okay, so next one is,
oh wait, you want the next question? I thought that one was
this whole thing. Okay, I'm curious to know if the whole idea of suggestion could be at play in regard to matching RV results, remote viewing. As with psychedelics, I've seen many a time when somebody shares a unique experience or trip, after which other people have almost identical experiences. Or could morphic resonance be at play here? Any reading recommendations for potential answers? Okay. So yeah, but they're saying is like the power of suggestion. So could that be at play in matching RV results? And basically meaning if multiple people remote view and they get like the same conclusion, is it just that it's like that morphic resonance field, and basically people are sharing information subconsciously or through the field? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's no reason that could not be at play. They even go into say, this is from Matt, about like when people have a trip, and they'll have a shared experience on the trip. We've had that actually happen with us. Like we had a meditation studio, and we used to do like crazy. We still
not do psychedelic trips.
No.
Meditation.
We do meditation, pure meditation, but it is like a psychedelic trip, because we would do astral travel.
But we would have people have shared experiences.
Pretty often.
Yeah.
Where they would be in each other. Somebody would be in their like they would see somebody in the room and their experience, and that other person was like, I saw you too. And so they were in a shared experience.
Yeah.
We've had that
they
pretty
went
often.
to the same like place.
Realm, dimension or something. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Matt, that's a great question. It's really hard sometimes. I mean, it's like trying to decipher between the dream world, the astral world, your imagination, this world. There's a thin line that separates a lot of it. And so to say, okay, did they actually go to the same place and meet up in this astral place? Or did each of them have an experience and they just kind of shared that information through the ether and it made it seem like they were both there, right? It's hard to tell. I think every situation is a little different, but both of those are actually pretty amazing if you think about it, because you either both went to the same astral place or you shared information like telepathically, and basically recreated like a situation in your head that mirrored the other person's, all telepathic. So I think all of that happens really. I think that we do there are like objective places, like other objective realities and objective dimensions like that actually exist, like DMT land, right?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of studies with DMT where people go to the same place, and like there's been times where people like say you go and you talk to like a machine elf in DMT land, and then like you go here often, somebody else goes there often, and the elf will actually tell the other person about the other person. You know what I mean? So that like not only did the two people go to one same objective place, but that person, that being, that deity, whatever that they talked to, remembered the other person and told the other person about the other person. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like it's like they're going to a place,
Yeah.
and there's beings in that place. This isn't like an imagination thing.
Yeah. There was that show, Tales from the Trip. And there was the guy who did, I think it was DMT, and he went to this other realm and he had this girlfriend in that realm that was like mad at him and was like yelling at him.
Yeah.
And then he like checked back out because it's a short thing. And then his friend did DMT and like went to the same place and was like, there was this chick who was pissed at you and was asking about you.
Yeah.
So it kind of does give that, and like, and then like with the telepathy tapes and that kind of stuff, and they talk about the kids going to the hill and that kind of stuff. So like, obviously there are other realms.
The hill, the park. Yeah. I mean, when I was at the Monroe Institute and I went to Claymation Land, there was somebody else that went to Claymation Land too, and the same session. Yeah. So,
and I had
what are the odds of that?
Yeah.
The
Claymation Land.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I was totally sober and literally went to a world that was pure claymation. And then at the debrief, somebody else in the room went to that place too, and at the same time. And so, I mean, that's crazy. I've never had an experience like that in my life. So, great question.
We've had shared dreams, and like I've experienced like shared meditations and stuff. But yeah, it's like, it's really, really, I mean, it's that you're going someplace.
Yeah. So I think it's both things. So to answer Matt's question, I think that yes, suggestion and just sharing information through the ether, the morphic field, does happen. It's how we have the 100th monkey effect. Like if 99 people learn something, it's going to be a lot easier for that 100th person to learn it. They probably won't even need to learn it. They'll just know it because 99 people before them. That's what 100th monkey is that the 100th person's going to know it because 99 people before them learned it. That's sharing information over the field, right? So we know that happens. It's been proven. So yes, I think that we do, so I think we do just share subconsciously and automatically, naturally, we share information over this field. And sometimes that can give an impression of telepathy or shared experience or whatever. That definitely happens. But then on top of that, remote viewing is real, because I mean, I've remote viewed on my own and verified it on my own. And the 2050 project is actually 6,000 people, and they use this very intricate system called Mobius that parses the data. And it accounts for things like this. It accounts for, I mean, you're talking about this was over a 30-year period, right? So there's so many variables that they took a lot of effort to remove from the system. So remote viewing is real. We know that. But also we share information, over the ether, and suggestion is real. So all the things are happening at the same time. And that's what makes so much of this stuff so hard to ever like prove. And it's also what makes our world and our reality so fluid. That's why remote viewing the future is so hard, because none of this stuff has happened yet. And there's no certainty it will happen. Like our future is changing every second because we have free will and there's 8 billion of us. So like Jorjani talked about, and like Robert Monroe talked about, there are like these kind of larger things that seem to be harder to move, right? There seems to be, like, people talked about it, like remote viewers back in the day were talking about when 9/11 happened, that it was like when they were remote viewing 9/11 and the psychics of that time, when they were really analyzing that situation, they basically were all in agreement that 9/11 was going to happen. Like it was weird. It was like this rock in a river, and just like the water flows around it, but that rock isn't moving, you know. So like there's certain things that seem to be rocks in the river, and that you can't move them. And it's all about how we flow around it and the decisions we make around it and that kind of stuff. And 9/11 was one of those that seemed like that was going to happen no matter what. So I think that our future is pretty much malleable and we can change most things, but I do think, you know, that there are some things that are harder to change. Like, you know, if there is this like geophysical event that happens every 13,000 years, right? That might not be something. If there was an asteroid coming, that might not be something we could change, right? But most things we have, you know, control over. So, all right, what are we talking about here? Familiar with Darius J. Wright? Yeah, I won't get into that. I don't have a lot of positive things to say there.
So we can't figure out if he's up or not.
Oh, yeah. Trying to keep this one positive. Jung's collective unconscious. Yep, that's it. I mean, we're constantly, you know, we have like each person has a conscious and a subconscious, and then our collective has what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, which is essentially just that. It's like the collective subconscious, and that's where we actually create like egregores and things like thought forms. We can create these collective thought forms out of our collective unconscious, like fears and things like that, and they manifest as wars, demons, and all sorts of stuff. So that's why Carl Jung did a whole, you know, deep dive on the UFO alien topic, and he kind of came out thinking a lot of it is us creating, like manifesting our fears and things like that. So pretty interesting. And Jacques Vallée actually backs up a lot of that. So yeah, I mean, there definitely does seem to be this whole like dream-like feel to everything, which, you know, I think it's because I've said this before. I think that the real world, the spirit world, and the dream world are all made of the same stuff. There's just different rule sets around it. Because if you think about it, when you're dreaming, you're still you. You know, you're just a different version of you. You know, David Icke. Actually, a bunch of people recommended him. I would freaking love to talk to David Icke. I love that guy. He's funny. But I mean, talk about dark. I mean, no one gets darker than David Icke, but he's funny. You can be dark with an accent. There's something about if you have a good accent, you can say whatever you want, right? But no, are you familiar with David Icke?
No.
Oh, good. You probably don't need that. He's old school. But yeah, I mean, he's been talking about. I mean, he's really goes deep on the reptilian side of things, but yeah, like he's awesome. I mean, he's a good guy. I like him, and so many of the things that he has been saying for decades, he's been out there talking about this stuff, and people have called him crazy for decades. And so much of it's kind of coming true now. It's crazy to see like so many of the things that David Icke's been talking about. Now all of a sudden he doesn't seem as crazy. So, I mean, I don't know if he knows who I am or anything. I'm still a small fry in the podcast world, but I will reach out to him because I would love to talk to him for sure. Is time speeding up? So something funny happened last night. We did a group guided meditation. Okay. And everyone has headphones and we use binaural beats, and our space is very zen-like and very peaceful, water feature and everything. It's very chill. But so I did an hour-long guided meditation, right? Had everybody down for an hour, right? Mm-hmm. And they're just laying on yoga mats, right? They're not like comfortable in bed or anything. Yeah, laying on yoga mats. I mean, it's padded and all that, but still, public space, bunch of people, hour-long guided meditation. Okay. When it was over and I brought everybody out, I told everyone, you know, hey, I'm proud of y'all. You just did an hour-long guided meditation, and no one could believe it had been an hour, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
it
so
definitely didn't feel like an hour.
So what that shows me, because this is in response to Mandy, I think it was Mandy saying that time seemed like it was speeding up. Time does seem like it's speeding up, but it's not. We're speeding up the illusion of time. So like we proved last night, we can slow down or speed up time, right? Like that's easy. It's all perception. So, you know, it's one of those things where like the busier you are, the more time's going to feel like it's going faster, you know, because time is literally the measurement between two events. So it's a measurement of change, But the way we usually measure it as humans is the measurement between two events. Any two events, the time between those two events is how we measure time. So it's kind of measured in decay or change. But whole point is that the more things you have, the more events you have, meaning just anything. So if your day is full of things, right, you're just constantly got this thing here and this thing here, and got to go do this thing and this thing and this thing. Your
Makes
time,
day fly.
yeah, it's going to make your day. It's going to make time seem like it's going really fast, because if time is the measurement between two things, then the more things you have, the shorter the time. So if you have a day where you don't have any things, time actually seems very serious. Like, oh my God, this day is dragging, right? Because you don't have any things. So it's all about like, try not to fill your day with unnecessary things and try to just slow down your own perception of time. But yes, time does definitely seem like it's going faster because the world is just full of more things. It's kind of almost like impossible to say, oh, just don't have so many things. Okay, I'll stop having things.
Walter Russell.
Yeah. Yep. I don't have The Secret of Light. I bought his book, the one, what's it called? The something one. Most expensive book I've ever bought. But it's awesome. It's like gold edged and gold inlays and everything. Yeah, I love Walter Russell. It's funny, like, there's that kind of famous interaction he had with Nikola Tesla, where Nikola Tesla told him to put his book, that book that I have, the Universal One, that's what it's called, told him to put it in a vault and lock it away for 1,000 years because humanity wasn't ready for it. And so that's what Nikola Tesla told Walter Russell. This was back in 1920 or something. And so I read that book a couple years ago whenever I bought it. And I was like, okay, well, that's what Nikola Tesla said back then. But like, obviously we're ready for it now, right? I read it and I was like, nope, we're not ready. Like it is the most amazing book, beautiful illustrations and everything. But yeah, Walter Russell was so far ahead of his time. It's not even funny. So was Nikola Tesla. Imagine if we had those two guys now. But yeah, they were, both of them, just brilliant on a different level. Heard of a thing called the quickening? Yeah. I mean, that's a biblical thing, but even Jason Bashir talks about that. Like, I've heard a few other people talk about it too, that it could happen. It could actually be a real thing that happens as like, I forget what it is that spurs it, but it has to do with the moon and the moon's relationship to the earth, because the moon is what actually keeps the earth spinning as slowly as it does. Before the moon was there, most people don't realize this, there was a time when the moon wasn't there. The moon hasn't always been there. Even scientists, as closed-minded and limited as they are, they admit that there was a pre-selenite age where the moon wasn't there, but they think that it was like billions of years ago. But there's actually like art and like there's art and literature from people that describe not having the moon there and then the moon appearing, right? So we think that the moon was actually placed there when like the Martian people came, which what we call the Anunnaki. But basically when they did that, they slowed down the rotation of the earth to terraform it. And
yes,
so the earth spins and time is the way it is on earth because of the placement of the moon. So if the moon was to move even like a little further, a little closer, or anything like that, it would affect and adjust the time on earth. So the quickening could actually physically happen. Like that's the thing that could happen if the moon were to move a little bit, like say something dislodged it, or say, I don't know, it really was a spaceship or something. If the moon were to move a little bit, yes, our time, would change, and that's what could start the quickening. Yeah, the moon is very unique. Yep. So the Earth spins. Yeah, I mean, we're spinning like around the sun, and the moon is spinning around us, and yeah, the Earth spins, right? Yeah.
The sun, so day and night.
Yeah, everything spins. I mean, everything moves. Everything has movement. I know what comes next is probably a flat Earth argument, but we're not going to get into that. If you want to know my thoughts on it, this is all just a 3D projection from a 2D substrate. So when people argue over flat Earth versus round Earth, it's all complete nonsense, because form is just like illusion in the sense that, like, you know, it's a holographic projection. So you're arguing over the wrong things. It doesn't really matter if it's flat or round. So, but by all accounts, it looks pretty round. And I've never understood the flat Earth argument. Like, look out into space, everything's round. So like everything's round except the thing we're on. Like it would be the only flat thing. Like I don't. It doesn't
Maybe
make
they're
any
all
sense.
flat.
Like a pancake.
Maybe, we don't know.
But then why?
They're just a bunch of coins.
But why
spinning
even
around
make it
out
that
there.
way? If everything's just an illusion and it's done to manipulate, why even make it round in the first? Because we don't, you know, like it doesn't even make any sense. It's a flobe,
Yep.
a flat globe, a flobe. All right, I think we've hit the end of the discussion. All right, guys. Yeah, I mean, I would subscribe to that. Earth is not a planet; it's a realm.
Yeah.
That's why I really don't like. I don't care. I don't care if it's triangular. Like, it doesn't really
Ooh,
matter.
that would be cool.
You know?
Or a
Yeah,
giant triangle.
that would be
Maybe a
cool.
giant pyramid. Like
Yeah.
a pyramid full of cat food in my dream last night.
Because trust me, like when I sit here and I imagine us flying through space at like millions of miles an hour while also like doing this vortex thing around the sun, and the sun's flying through space, and then we're in the Milky Way, and the Milky Way's flying. I mean, all that stuff, and you think about it and you're like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like we're moving. And I understand how stuff works. Like when you're in an airplane, it doesn't feel like you're going 500 miles an hour. I get it. But you know, so yeah, it's like you look at things and you're like, yeah, it doesn't seem like we're flying through space because you don't hear anything. And all, you know, I get it. I get it. That's why I would just say, who cares the shape? It's more like what Tesla said. It's a realm, you know, it's a simulator, you know, like when a pilot goes in a flight simulator, he feels like he's flying through space. He feels like he's doing all that stuff. He's not. He's not. So I've been talking about this forever. It's a simulator.
Well, I
you know?
mean, the realm simulator like theory, especially if we're here to learn things, to give that to our higher selves on the other side, like they're depending on us.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think we're here to learn at more of a spiritual level, not like a physics level. Like,
Well,
I don't
yeah.
think it matters. Like people
Right.
come here and they try to figure out
But
how
there's
many
places-
subatomic particles are there. And it's like, your higher self doesn't give a shit about that. Like
No.
that doesn't help with growth.
Right.
You know, that just keeps us busy.
Well, I mean, I think that like in some ways scientific studies are the same as like religion, and that like they're like, no, it is this way. This is what, you know, science says.
Yeah.
Like hardcore facts, like no intuition there. All just like, I need to know. And then they'll like 20 years later be like, oh, we were totally wrong on that. Sorry. Haha. Just kidding.
Yeah. We missed it by 1 billion years. Yeah. That's funny because that's like when you get into Zen Buddhism, what Zen Buddhism is all about is that anybody can become enlightened. You don't need a god. You don't need a deity. You don't even need a guru. You don't need anything. Anyone can become enlightened through just zazen, which is just meditation, stillness, being alone with yourself. And that you're supposed to basically ask yourself crazy, profound questions like what's the sound of one hand clapping, right? And then you sit in silence. When you do that, it forces you to think so outside the box and so abstract that you just forget about the world. You forget about mechanics. You forget about, is it flat or round? You forget about physics. You forget about anything because you're like in this like other space now, like contemplating these profound questions. When you do that, it leads to all these other understandings and awakenings and like stuff, because you pull yourself out of the physical. You're no longer concerned about material, and you're like, your mind just goes to this far off place. And when you do that enough, you don't care about any of these earthly things, you know, like it just doesn't matter. So people can sit here and argue all day over like all this stuff, but like at a spiritual enlightenment level, like, which is the entire point, this is a vehicle for enlightenment. None of that matters. Like that just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like that's not the important stuff. So people can argue, but it's like arguing over like sports statistics or you know what I mean, and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, you can, and maybe somebody's right and maybe someone's wrong, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So it doesn't get you anywhere. But you know, it's fun for people.
So if we're here to like expand our consciousness, then places like the Monroe Institute and that kind of stuff are where we should be like spending our, you know, extra time and effort.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so
C squared, here I come.
Yeah. I mean, anything that just makes you think bigger and more expansive is good. Absolutely. But you don't need to go anywhere. Like Monroe stuff's awesome. But like, you know, what like a Zen Buddhist would tell you is you can do all that stuff by yourself at home in the living room, right? Like
right.
you don't need anything. But having said that, yeah, there's all sorts of cool tools out there and places where you can go and learn. Like even like Buddhists go to like temple and learn
Right.
with you know their Buddhist
Other
masters and
Buddhists, yeah.
monks and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So very interesting.
does God still learn? Yeah, I mean that's the whole point of this place. You know, I mean, why would we be here? Why would any of us be here doing any of this stuff if God wasn't still, you know, evolving? Right? That's what all this is about. Been investigating some old Monroe stuff. Children in the early 80s receiving hearing tests. They seem to know everything, seen the future, can't remember their first years, relating but clueless. I don't know. Huh. I mean, there's a new whistleblower dude out. His name's Jordan, which he gets extra points for. But he's a nice guy, and he talks about how he traces it back. He's been very outspoken, especially on X, about he was in the GATE program and the gifted and talented, and that took him to this other kind of weird high school type, you know, government run type school, and then he got put in these psionic programs, very similar to the 20 and back stuff. If you ever heard any of that. So yeah, a lot of the stuff starts with kids and starts with GATE and starts with all that kind of stuff. You know, I was in GATE and a lot of weird stuff happened, and I think I got kicked out because I was not cooperative. Thank God.
To ask too many questions.
Yeah, I'm not what they're looking for, but yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff that happens with the kids and the hearing test and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they're obviously looking for particular types of people that have particular, you know, abilities and assets and stuff. Yeah, so not surprising at all. So yeah, if I was a parent, I would not. I mean, seriously, like if the school's like, hey, we want to put your kid in this special program, you know, I'd be like,
well, yeah, but parents, like when we were kids, our parents were like, hey, my kid's smart. You know?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not saying like honors and all that stuff's fine, but like, you know, I don't know. Like I remember some of that stuff and it was weird. And this new whistleblower guy, he's talking about it too.
Yes, it is weird.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I think that there's different types of humans, and there's definitely humans that have different abilities, especially these like nonverbal autistics. They should be very, very cared for and protected because they're like superhumans. You know, they have a lot of abilities that no one else. I don't even think it's possible. Like I think that they just come out of the box with some of these psychic abilities that like it doesn't matter how much training we do, we'll never be able to match. And we've seen it with our own eyes, you know. And I mean, it's wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, they should definitely be protected. If you have a nonverbal autistic child and any sort of group or anything wants to put them in study or training or observation or anything.
Well, you can't say any,
but
because there's plenty.
But they're being infiltrated. They're like, this is now becoming a big thing where those people are now being like recruited and targeted and like watched. And I would just be very careful. I'd be very protective because I think they're very special people and they need to be protected. But yeah, all kids, but yeah, I think that like children just show those abilities and they're easier to like kind of, I don't know, like trick and stuff because they're children. But when you get to be grown up, you know, I don't know, but when you're a child, like say you're a child, you're in school and you have psychic ability, you're going to stand out. Like it's going to be kind of easy to tell, you know, the psychic kid over the other kids because everyone in school is kind of the same. They all kind of act the same, you know. You get out in the real world when you're an adult and everyone's crazy and everything's nuts. It'd be a lot harder to like find specific people and recruit people. But in schools, they're like sitting ducks. They're used to going through testing. They're used to not having any freedoms and privacy and stuff. So it's a perfect place for these corrupt agencies to recruit innocent people. So yeah, just be careful. Be careful out there. Keep your head on a swivel, guys. And yeah, if you have autistic children, just be extra careful with them, extra nurturing and protective. Yeah. And also like look into some of these things. I mean, like I think all humans have amazing abilities that we have not even come close to tapping into, but especially 100%. Some of these kids have just heightened abilities that are pretty amazing. They should be definitely used for good. It makes me worry sometimes with that new whistleblower guy coming out talking about that this was a government agency that was taking kids out of these gifted and talented, putting them in these special psionic programs where they were learning how to. Actually, Jesse Michaels just did his latest interview with Dan Sherman, talking about the same thing. How he was recruited into this secret agency thing with the CIA, and they were like, he was doing these tests and he didn't realize it, but they were teaching him how to telepathically communicate with ETs, and then he was having these whole conversations with ETs. That was the latest one on Jesse Michaels. But what they're doing now is it's all telepathic. They're finding
Yeah.
people that have these telepathic type abilities, and they're kind of tricking them into doing these things, like communicating with aliens, when the people don't know that's what they're doing. He thought he was doing these like cognitive tests, so
wild.
Yeah, it is. But
and then they're like, that doesn't exist.
I know. Yeah. Then they tell everyone.
Conspiracy theories.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, oh, MKUltra wasn't real. And it's like, yeah, but we found all your stuff, and then y'all burnt like 1,000 boxes. Why'd you do that? Because it wasn't real. But yeah, it's all real. It's just they don't understand it. So it's like they don't want to talk about it because they don't they're still learning. Like they're still trying to figure out what it all means, And I am too. Like when we were there at the Psy Games and we were watching Lidu do that stuff, like that was like and I'd spent a week at the Monroe Institute, and we saw all sorts of stuff. And we were contacted by aliens, and we had all sorts of paranormal things and Bigfoot and all sorts of crap happen. And that didn't even blow my mind as much as seeing Lidu do what she did, right? Like when that happened, I was like, whoa, that's the most mind-blowing thing I've ever seen, because she did it so nonchalantly in front of 1,000 people, and just like it was nothing, like reading minds and just doing stuff.
Well, and her even knowing that they were going to be a part of the Psy Games before, like months before they had even talked to Hakeem or anything. And she was telling her mom,
she knew the future
telepathically, hey, we're going to be a big part of this, and we're going to be on a big stage together, and this is going to happen. Her mom was like, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. So like watching that, it made me, I went home and I did a whole episode on it, and I was like, okay, here's how I think it works. And it all has to do with non-local consciousness. It has to do with the fact that consciousness is not inside your head. It's a field. It's a field of information that you have a local consciousness field, which is yours. But then there's this non-local consciousness field that everyone can access. And that's how you can see the future, because the future is information in that field. That's how you can communicate telepathically, because you're just sending information through the field from one person to another. So, and she just basically has the ability to dip into that field, do whatever she wants, and then dip right back in. I think she probably lives, because these nonverbal autistics, their bodies aren't like a great place to be a lot of times. They're like in pain and it's confusing and stuff. So they spend more time in the non-physical. So I think they're in the non-physical more. And I think every once in a while they just kind of hop in their body and like they're like, oh, okay, you want me to do this trick? Okay, here's your information. You know what I mean? And then they hop back out. To them it's like so effortless. But I think the government looks at all that stuff and they're like, how can we turn this into a weapon? And it's like, well, I mean, why? So, anyways,
because they try to do that with everything.
They try to do it with everything, and it doesn't really work. They were trying to weaponize like remote viewing way back in the day, and you don't get the impression they ever really mastered it. You get the impression they figured out remote viewing is real, and they got pretty good at doing it, but the other guys got really good at doing it too. So everyone's just remote viewing everyone, and then they had remote view like security guards kind of a thing that would like protect like sites. So we couldn't even remote view sensitive sites because they would have their own remote viewers blocking the sites we're trying to remote view. So it just turned into this stupid thing. So now they're trying to like go the telepathic, way with it. And I don't know, we'll see how it goes, but.
Yes, Mandy.
Yeah. From what I understand from especially the nonverbal autistics, but all autistics, they're so like I know in the telepathy tapes there was that one kid that said that something about when you have the abilities like I do, you can't be evil or you can't lie or something like that. Like lying to them is not even like us. Like we'll be like, I even heard Lidu's mom, what's her name? Dahlia. Yeah, Dahlia. She was on Danny Jones the other day and she was talking about how she was like Danny was asking her, it's like, so what's it like if your kid can read your mind? Like they can read your dirty thoughts, your negative thoughts, all this kind of stuff. And she was like, yeah, she's like, that's like what we think, but like they don't think about it that way. They're like, they basically say that, when it's a dirty thought or a negative thought or something, they just don't pay attention to it. Like they ignore it. They kind of don't focus on it. So it's not like they're just reading your mind and everything. It's like they're just not wired that way. Like we look at it that way, like, oh no, they're going to read my dirty thoughts and stuff. But they're like, that's not what we do. And like, so then people will be like, oh, so you can just like manipulate people and lie and this kind of stuff. And their response is always like, why would we do that? Like Like they don't even think that way. Like they're not thinking, oh, I can read people's minds, so this way I can like, I can get secrets out of them and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like they don't like when we say that stuff to them, we say, so, can you get these secrets from this person, or can you they'd be like, why would I do that? Like it
Yeah.
doesn't compute to
Yeah.
them. Like they're so good that they don't even understand.
Yeah.
So like what Mandy's saying, like her son gets confused when a witness like negativity or unkindness. It's like, yeah, it doesn't compute to them.
Yeah.
Why would somebody do that?
Mhm.
They're a different type of human. And
Yeah.
I'm going to do a video soon about the human design prophecy of 2047 and the rave children, because I think what we're seeing with the nonverbal autistics and with these newer autistics is this new like generation, this new evolution of human being. People look at it like this, it's a bad thing, like autistics are bad, like it's some sort of a, I don't know, like a negative mutation or something. But what the human design prophecy says is that it is a mutation, but it's this positive, it's like an evolutionary mutation. And at the beginning, it's going to seem weird. It's not going to make any sense. But because it's like they don't fit in, like, you know what I mean? Because they are different than us. But that it's actually a new like evolution of human, and that's how all humans are going to be in the future. And that this is just the beginning. So if that's true, then we need to get used to this, and we need to figure out like a plan moving forward. So there actually is a whole, it's called the 2047 prophecy by Ra. His name was Ra Uru, the founder of human design. It's very explicit. It's very specific. Even talks about what the exact mutation is going to be in our chromosomes and our DNA. It has to do with the planetary alignments and this new cycle, this like we're going into a different yuga cycle and stuff, and it all has to do with all that. And it's very, very specific. This happened before in 1781 when Uranus was discovered. And so I think that there's going to be a new planet discovered in 2 years, and that's what's going to lead to this. So, but anyways, I'll do a whole video on that. But yeah, these autistics, I think they're not going anywhere. This is not because of Tylenol or whatever. Like this is like, it's a evolution, Yeah. So it's pretty cool to see. But it's a weird
like
time.
They're born without like for instance, when we were with our child who's on the spectrum, and one of her friends was like, oh, look at these people and how they're dressed, and like they were kind of like making fun of, and like she had no idea like why she was like, that's how that person dresses.
Mm-hmm.
There's like no judgment there. Like
Yeah.
those aren't the things that matter to them. They're like, that's how that person expresses themselves. I express myself this way. It's a completely different like mentality altogether.
Yeah.
Like
they look at the world very different
with the like kindness and that kind of stuff. Like just completely not understanding like the mean girl mentality and that kind of stuff. And that is like a breath of fresh air, you know, like I'm 45 years old and there are still mean girls.
Yeah. But they're stepping into this world. That's the problem, is like the world's not changing for them. The world wants them to change. And that's what, like, my point is that they're not going anywhere.
No.
And there's a possibility, if the 2047 prophecy is correct, that what Raw says is after 2047, all children born are going to be rave children. And the rave children are all that type of human. Like it's not autism. We call it autism because we don't know what to call it. Right. But it's actually a different type of human. So I'll be getting more into this because it's crazy fascinating. And it actually explains a lot of what we're seeing. Like, because if you look at the rates of autism, they are like exponential. Like it's not only not slowing down, it's going up exponentially. And
what was it? The doctor from Telepathy Tape, she said that it used to be like 1 in 10,000 or something like that, and now it's like 1 in 30. Like, I mean, those are crazy numbers. And that was like from the beginning of her like practice to now. So I think she said like she'd been in practice for like 25 years or something like that, So not even that long if you really think about it.
No, it's wild. So, I mean, at what point does the world start to adjust for that? You know what I mean?
Mandy, yes. The hair thing. So wild that you say that, but yeah, like
Yeah.
ours does not like their hair
Huh.
messed with. Like she purposely makes it like bigger, and I think that it's the antenna piece
Yeah.
of it. I think that
That's interesting.
it's like wavelength.
We cut her hair a couple years ago, and it
I
was a
know,
very bad
yeah, and she hasn't
experience.
cut
Yeah.
it since. Yeah,
Huh. Fascinating. But yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like, so if it's not slowing down, it's spreading exponentially, or it's whatever growing exponentially. And you know, if this prophecy turns out to be right, it's something we can prove, because that's how human design works. Everything is provable. It's not. This isn't like it's not vague or emotion driven or anything. It's mechanical. And he even lays out the exact genetic mutation and everything we should be looking for. So say we start, you know, picking that up and proving that. If at a certain point it clicks in people that, oh, this is a thing, like this is like, you know what I mean? Like this isn't going away. The world's going to have to change.
Yeah.
Like we can't just keep telling these people they need to change. We can't be
Yeah.
like, you must change to adapt to this world, because the world's fucked. Like the world does not operate in a very efficient, rational way. Like it's efficient in like a go to work, get a paycheck kind of a way. Like that part's efficient. Like, you know, like you
Sort
can,
of.
you know what I mean? Like the working part, like the capitalism part of the world works pretty good, you know, but like at like a spiritual development, conscious development, empathy, kind of you know, a way, the world has a lot of work it needs to do. So it's like, we should look at this. It's like, hey, you know, here's these kids. They have psychic abilities. They're empathetic. They're nice. All these things. Why don't we take some notes from that and shift the way we do stuff to kind of more accommodate them, you know, as opposed to trying to force them to fit into this world. I think the whole world's changing, and I think, you know, like I think humans are changing. The world's going to have to change with them. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. The 2047 prophecy goes into how the world changes, and it's very fascinating. So I'll do a whole video on that. But anyways, I know we've gotten very off topic now. Cheers, LA. Anyways, thank you guys. I appreciate everyone for being here Sunday night. I guess we got to go back to reality tomorrow, right? I have 2 episodes coming out this week, so be looking for those. Exciting stuff, guys. And appreciate y'all being here. And
I have to do a special episode for Halloween. What kind of spooky stuff are you talking
about?
about?
We're gonna have 3 episodes this week. Yeah, we're doing a special Friday Halloween episode. So actually, I don't know what it's gonna be about.
That's my favorite.
We'll see. It's a mystery. All right, guys. Thank y'all for being here. We'll see y'all later. Love you all. Peace.